All right, welcome to the Focused Fundraiser this week, where each week we discuss how to focus on the right fundraising practices, because doing more is not the goal. Doing what matters most is, and focusing in on that. The goal at this time is to hear from successful fundraisers like Jake, who are in the trenches and who are willing to share the practices that they've figured out and that they use on a daily basis. So today I am joined by Jake Kubik. Jake, you are the founder of Valuable Visits Consulting. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, you bet. I appreciate you having me, Rob.
Yeah, so you've been in the fundraising space for many years, not just as a consultant, but before that as an actual fundraising officer. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into the fundraising world.
Yeah, appreciate that. So my first job out of the gate out of college was actually in healthcare administration. I had a deep passion for serving particularly seniors. So I worked as a healthcare administrator in senior care for a number of years. And my family was growing, and the work of healthcare administration is busy all the time, 24/7, all the time. So we needed a change. My mentors understood that, and opportunity with Stanford Health came up. And my wife actually found this position as a major gifts officer with the Sanford Health Foundation here in Bismarck, and never really seriously considered fundraising work. I've done the Clifton Strengths Finders thing, and that always kind of tells you your top 5 jobs that work with your personality. And fundraising was always in the top 5, but never really considered it. But my wife knew that, and she found this opportunity, and I applied for it. Came up and interviewed. We were living in Rapid City, South Dakota at the time. And so we came up here, interviewed for it, and decided it was our calling to move forward with it. And they took a chance on me because I had no fundraising experience. I took a chance moving into another sector, and it turns out I love it. I loved working as a major gifts officer with Sanford Health. You get to meet so many unique people, people of financially accomplished means, and there's all kinds of different ways that people come into that, and you get to learn their story and connect their passions to an aspect of your mission. And so that really stirred on the fire. And then I had the opportunity to go over to the University of Mary as their major gifts officer. And the whole world of collegiate fundraising is different. I mean, the mechanics of it are very similar, but it is a different environment that you fundraise in. And so got a good swath of experience in major gifts fundraising, in particular across a couple of different sectors. And then my wife and my sister-in-law had planted this seed and had asked me if I ever thought about teaching people how to raise major gifts. And I said, no, not really. Isn't that for people that have decades of experience, people that are eyeballing retirement? And those are the kind of people that coach others. And they said, not really. If you have a gift and you feel like you can teach that and do it well, you should consider it. And so that planted the seed. And my wife and I came up with the name Valuable Visits because that's exactly what we do. We teach people how to have visits of particularly high value when it comes to the major donor and how to do that well. Built a curriculum that we walk our clients through. And so the aspect now, although we're not directly soliciting donors anymore, we're teaching people that craft of how to identify those major donors, how to build authentic, joy-filled relationships with them, and then eventually make the invitation for them to contribute to your mission in some meaningful way at a number that's high and meaningful for them. And then do really good work in keeping them informed of how that money is being used in the mission so that they can't help but continue to give to your mission time and time again. So now we get to serve many unique missions. And so it's really awesome just to see how donors are different in each mission, their passions are different in each mission, and some of the similarities of the challenges different nonprofits face, and also the unique challenges based on the industry or the sector that nonprofit is in, that those challenges that are pretty unique to them and helping them navigate those waters. I love it. I love being able to serve our nonprofit clients in the capacity that we do now as a coaching agency.
That's fantastic. So in your career over these years of not only being in the trenches yourself, but now consulting across different sectors or different verticals in this sector, what has been one thing that has held true for you in fundraising and one thing that has changed drastically that you've seen over the years?
Great question. I think the thing that holds true is the authentic human relationship. Building a relationship with your donors and any other sort of stakeholders within your organization, your fellow teammates, other people within your organizations, whether they're directly on your team or not. The authentic human relationships will never change in the work of fundraising. You think about, Rob, people that have asked you for money, places you've been generous. Usually, especially if you've given any sort of big money, that usually requires human to human contact, even if it's a phone call, or it could be an email in some aspects, but usually big money comes in the form of human direct contact. And so I think that's something that's not going to change in the fundraising world, especially in major gifts. What could change and what is changing is the use of AI. That's a huge thing, buzzword everywhere now. AI, especially generative AI, as we see it now, the ChatGPT chatbots and Gemini and all kinds of different content management systems that are utilizing and leveraging AI. That's been around since about 2022. And now in 2025, we're moving into agentic AI. So we were at a place where we could, ask ChatGPT how to make a chicken sandwich and it'd give you a recipe, and that was all great. Now we're actually moving towards it being able to spend your money on that chicken sandwich at Chick-fil-A or another restaurant. That's where we're moving. And so at Valuable Visits, we've built some nonprofit tools that are on our website that's free for anyone to use because we want to be in that space. At a base level, all of our AI tools are developed with this concept in mind. If it doesn't help you spend less time in front of your computer screen and more time in front of your donors, we don't believe that that's the best use case in the nonprofit world for an AI tool, no matter what it is, whether it's helping you with marketing, helping you research and write grants, helping you develop fundraising strategies, segmenting your donor base, whatever the case may be. If it doesn't help make the computer-based stuff more efficient, so you can then allocate more of your time to be in front of your donors, I don't think that's a good use case. Now, being able to, like in a CRM, being able to segment your donors in a much faster way, being able to send out automated emails, being able to, even when people respond to those emails, anticipate or even have the AI help you create a response to those, especially in real time. Being able to be responsive to your donors is really important. And those automated email pieces, those are important for most every part of your donor base. And just frankly, from a practicality standpoint, you can't spend in-person time with every single donor. Usually, you spend more time in person with your major donors. They just frankly fund more of the mission. It's not a good, bad, or otherwise thing. It's just the reality. There are just less people with more of the money. And those people, especially when you have a major gift strategy, fund statistically 80% of your mission on an annualized basis when you're building those relationships with those right individuals. And AI can help you in so many different ways. So back to the original question, what I don't think is ever going to fundamentally change is the need for human authentic relationship building, but the AI tools can help that piece actually be more robust, actually give you back more time to spend with your people because you're utilizing AI tools to make the computer-based stuff much more efficient. And I think that's the best use case for AI tools, especially in the nonprofit world.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think back to some advice that I was given when I built a company, which is if the tasks you are doing on a daily basis aren't directly impacting the revenue of that business, you need to find somebody to hand it off, or you need to build process and systems around it so it automates. And that was such good advice, right? So, like, if people are spending time on the admin tasks that could easily be automated in today's day and age of automation in their CRM or whatever they're using, and they're spending time on that rather than the relationship building, they are missing the mark, right?
Yeah, I think I like to say, all of fundraising is somewhat marketing and somewhat community relations, but not all marketing and community relations is fundraising. The first three letters of fundraising is FUN, like we're the fun people. Like we have to be able to bring joy-filled conversations to our donors, to our other members of our team. We have to exude joy because people relate to that. They're interested in that. They're intrigued by that. And fundraisers that do a good job of creating a good experience for their donor base, hopefully what that results in is more money given more often. But fundraisers aren't just about the FUN. We also have to remember that there's a D at the end of that. Funding is what we do as fundraisers. We have fun, but we can't forget that we fund the mission. That's imperative as a fundraiser. And sometimes we can get wrapped up in the glitz and glam of galas, and we're on stage and we're talking to people and we're building awareness through email campaigns. But if the ROI, kind of like you had talked about, isn't there, we're not really doing what we're supposed to be doing as fundraisers. We fund the missions, and we provide marketing, and we provide community relations, but we're the ones that bring in the revenue. And that's extremely important, especially if our missions need, or if our missions have, if most of our mission is funded by the philanthropic dollar. Sometimes we have other revenue streams based on the services we provide. Maybe we charge for those. But for a lot of nonprofits, philanthropy is it. And so we have to make sure that everything we're doing has ROI as part of the strategy. And it's not simply marketing. It can be both, but it can't simply be marketing. We always have to have an eye on how the revenue is being generated at these events and these types of strategies.
Yeah, that's good. And I imagine for especially newer fundraisers, but those that haven't been on the major donor side of things of philanthropy, it can be daunting to sit across from a major donor for the first time or for the first few times. I would assume that this is a piece that you're coaching as a consultant and that you experienced firsthand. Like, what are some of those mindset barriers that you see often that you are trying to help coach people through or that you had to deal with yourself?
Yeah, it's a great question. In the fundraising world, especially in our departments, if we're part of an organization that's large, usually we have multiple departments, and not everyone gets it. Even if your organization requires 100% of your revenue to come from philanthropy, not everyone gets the pressure that you're under. Not everyone gets that, if we're not building relationships with the right people, and that takes time, we're not going to bring in the right revenue. And that takes time. And folks, like, not to dog on like administrative professionals or, leadership roles, they're looking at the budgets and we need the revenue. These are our expenses. We need to get the revenue in. We need it yesterday. We need it 2 weeks ago. And it's as simple as, why don't you just go make friends and then ask them for a bunch of money? Now, what we do in fundraising is certainly fun, and we meet a lot of unique individuals, and we have the opportunity to bring them in. From a mindset perspective, from a fundraiser, because there's an immense pressure to raise that money because our mission hinges on it, and the people that we serve aren't served well unless we bring in that money. There's an old adage that says, no margin, no mission. It's true. If we don't have a margin, if we're not fundraising, we're not able to use that cash to serve the people our mission is called to serve. And I think from a mindset, especially from a new fundraiser, that can be a lot of pressure when we're focusing on budget alone. And where we need to focus on is joy. I talk a lot about this in my coaching, and I like to use the hashtag JoyDealer. I kind of train our clients to be dealers, kind of like drug dealers, but not drugs. It's just joy. We have to have a mindset in which we're building relationships with really unique people, and we are making the invitation for them to experience joy in giving to our mission. And in particular, the major donor, folks of financially accomplished means can purchase almost anything they desire in this world. They can pay cash for the car. They can buy the second home. Maybe that's cash. They got toys. They don't have to worry about paying for these things. But what is never for sale is the joy you feel in giving your money away. And that, for the major donors, usually requires an in-person invitation. Not many people are looking to cut a check for $1 million and just send it to your nonprofit, Rob. Maybe they are, but even if they do that, the joy they experience from simply deciding to send a check is going to be different than building a relationship with that organization, really being brought into the story and understanding in a deep way the impacts that their money is going to have. And then the invitation to experience that joy comes after that. That's a different experience than simply just sending a check. And so we teach people how to do that. It's all about joy. Fundraisers have to remember that what they're doing is making an invitation for their donors to experience joy in giving to their mission. And they don't get to do that, at least not as joyfully as they can, unless you invite them to do that. So it's all about joy. We put a lot of pressure on budgets, and that's important. That's the practicality of our missions. But we have to remember, as fundraisers, we're providing a joyful experience for our donors by inviting them to give to our mission. And in major donors, that's significantly give to our mission. So it's all about
Yeah,
joy.
that's good. I love that. The joy part of it is huge. It's a great way to frame inviting them into, like you said, inviting them into the storyline. You talked earlier about segmentation, and I think that's an important aspect of this when we think of major donors as its own segment. And how do we automate for that, or do we automate for that? I'd be curious to hear your perspective. I've got an opinion on automating with major donors, which is no, but what's your perspective on that?
Well, not everyone needs the same mission or the same message, and they shouldn't get it in the same frequency, I believe. Major donors should not be solicited digitally. Maybe here or there for specific appeals, maybe it's a Christmas appeal or some sort of one-time event, but major donors, they need to be told the story. And that frequency could be more or less, depending upon your organization, than say your kind of mid-level or lower tier donors. Those mid-level to low-level donors, those can receive call to actions in a digital form with a give now button. That's totally appropriate. When you think about the percentage of revenue that's taken just from like third party payment processors, most people aren't given $25,000 checks online and 3% of that's getting cut off. They don't like that. Donors have a hard time even grasping that sometimes 20% of their gift has to go to overhead. And we have to tell them that, we got to pay for people to ask for the money. There's people that run the mission, and not every organization is set up where they have an endowment large enough to offset all of their operating costs. But when we have a database, especially if we've been around for a long time and we got thousands of donors, manually sifting through them in an Excel spreadsheet, that's possible. It's going to take a long time, but segmenting our donors with a robust CRM, especially when there's AI tools that can help even further segment donors, maybe based on preferences or certain notes that have been generated, but being able to separate out by either cumulative lifetime giving history or maybe the size of single gifts that certain donors have given, so that you can tailor your communication to the appropriate channels to increase the chances of them experience joy in giving to your mission. That's really key. We're just broad spectrum sending out the same message, the same thank yous, having everyone experience the same thing from a donor perspective, no matter how much they give. We're not really incentivizing anyone to give more because everyone gets the same experience. We want the base level to be really good, but we should treat our different segments of donors a little bit differently. Someone that gives $1 million should not get the same type of treatment as someone that's given $20. Everyone has dignity and respect, and you need to honor all of your donors, but how we steward them can look a little bit different based on the size of their gifts. And we don't even know where to start unless we know how to segment those donors well, so we can categorize them, so we can prioritize them differently.
Yeah, that's good. And I think when you talk about it in that form, it's kind of feels like a no-brainer of like, oh, well, duh, that makes sense. But until you actually utilize the data and you're not sending the same newsletter and the same ask to everybody in your entire email base, it can be easy to not segment. So, moving towards another question. So, from your perspective, how have donor expectations shifted today versus maybe a few years ago or even a year ago? Like, how do nonprofits need to be paying attention to this shift in expectations in order to stay effective and relevant to donors today?
Yeah, good question. And I even think in my career, this has shifted a lot. And I think COVID has done a lot
Mm.
to shift these things as well. I even think presidential changes have shifted these priorities as well. Back in the day, donors would give because there was an emergency. There was something specifically that they wanted to help solve. Now, donors want to align their values with the missions themselves. They might serve the homeless, but there are many nonprofits that serve the homeless. They want the actual entity in the way that they operate to align with their values. Certainly, a portion of their values is I want to serve the homeless, you serve the homeless. They're not necessarily going to just give you money because you do this thing. They're going to look at this homeless shelter and this nonprofit that serves the homeless, and this one might be religious affiliated, this one might not be, and this one that's religious affiliated aligns with my values more, and so I'm going to give money over here. Or there's politics that come into play. I think values based giving is where we are moving towards. People are looking for meaning and purpose more than they ever have in their giving, and they're looking for values alignment with the organizations that they're looking to give money for. It's not simply that you provide this service to the population of people that I want to serve. I also need to make sure that you as an organization are operating in a way, especially from a major donor standpoint, that if I'm going to invest a significant amount of money with you, your mission, your organization needs to align with my values and serve the people that I want my money to serve. So I think value-based giving is something that's really gaining steam uh, in the world of philanthropy, particularly with major donors. We see this with family foundations. We see this with even corporate giving. You used to be able to just go to businesses and they would entertain any ask from anyone. Well, that got out of hand quick because there's just too many asks. Now people have set up almost like grant-like processes where you apply and they have right on their websites who we give to and who we don't give to. The whole point of that is to kind of weed out uh, misaligned values of organizations that they don't align with, so that they don't even have to look at those. If you don't meet these criteria, don't even apply, so that every application that they get, they know that in some form there's some mission alignment there based on the values that they've set up as an organization. So values-based giving is gaining steam significantly, and I think that's a good move. I think it's more purpose-driven. I think it forces nonprofits to really look internally on who are we, what is our mission, who are we as an organization, who are we serving, and most importantly, why are we doing this work? And how do we communicate that to our donor base?
I think that's a really powerful piece to bring. It's interesting to hear that is a shift in the nonprofit sector. I think Steve Jobs said it well in that true marketing is values marketing. You're not selling features or what you do. You're selling how you align with your customer or your constituent. Either way, it's them wanting to find community and their tribe, which is common values. And that's such a huge piece to build a foundation off of, rather than just saying, yeah, I think the homeless shelter is a great example of, they both serve the community well, but their values and the way that they approach serving might be different. And so how you bring that to the constituents that you're marketing to makes a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I always end with this question. Fundraisers wear a lot of hats. They can feel overwhelmed. It can feel very much like they're putting fires out that came up this week. Rather than being proactive, they're being reactive. What advice would you give to somebody that is feeling overwhelmed today, right now, and how to focus in on what matters most?
Yeah, great. You got to have community. If you don't have a mentor as a fundraiser, they don't even need to be a fundraising professional themselves, just someone that can give you business advice. They have practical knowledge. Maybe they were a business owner, or they just, most people have worked for a long time, and that they have practical life experience in the working world. You should have a mentor. If that mentor is another fundraiser or someone that has fundraising experience, maybe retired, I think that's even better. Someone that can relate to what you've been through, what you're going through, and then community. If you aren't participating in like a local chapter of whatever it is in your community for fundraising, maybe it's the Association of Fundraising Professionals or some local group, or whatever the case may be. If you are not participating in community with other fundraisers, and they may be full-time fundraisers, they might be executives that have fundraising responsibilities, marketers that have fundraising responsibilities. There's just with any position, any profession, there's a uniqueness in the conversation that you're able to have with other people who are experiencing the same things. So one, have a good mentor. If you don't have that, identify someone that can be your mentor. What does that actually look like? That actually looks like finding someone and asking them to be your mentor, someone that can meet with you or at least take your call on a regular basis, that you can talk through some issues with, that they can help support you with whatever you're going through. And then having community to go to on a regular basis. Maybe that's monthly, maybe that's weekly. I think monthly is a good frequency, maybe every other month. I think that's okay too. but a community of fundraisers that you can go to share war stories and to encourage each other. To be good fundraisers, we first have to be generous ourselves, and to be generous with the support we give to others, with our time, with our encouragement, with ideas. That makes a good fundraiser, that we're donor-centric with our mission, but that we're also fundraiser-centric and building relationships with other people who are fundraising for other missions. So a mentor is key, and having good community of other fundraisers is also key.
Couldn't agree with you more. That's very good advice to end on. Jake, thank you so much for giving your advice for free. I know you charge for this as a consultant and you have such great experience. So thank you for giving your advice for free today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And for those that are listening, I hope that this conversation did encourage you to simplify and to focus in on what matters most and to lean into the ruthless elimination of more. If you are curious about how DonorDoc can help you clarify and build a strong donor base, or if you'd like to connect with Jake, I will make sure to leave links for both below. Jake, you mentioned a few AI tools as well that you give for free. I'll make sure to link those in the description below as well. And we will see you next week.